Hello again. So after I did my last Flash video, I realized that the only season of this show I had never made a video about was season 2. I also realized that it would bother me forever if I didn't fill that gap, so that's why I'm making this video. That's the only reason. I mean, it's not like I don't have things to say about this season. I do, it's just that there aren't many. They also aren't very passionate or controversial things because this season just didn't do much for me. And I wasn't entirely shocked by that. Even when this season first aired, I felt like it was a step down, and my opinion has not changed much there. Except this time, I noticed that it felt a lot like a repetition of season 1. Obviously, there's the fact that the villain is another evil fast man who wants to use Barry's speed for his own ends, but it goes a little deeper than that. Actually, let's talk about Zoom first. I'm not a fan of Zoom. He has a cool costume, I guess, but I find his characterization very cartoonish to the point where I don't really buy him as a threat because he's so ridiculously evil. I always see people say Zoom is the scariest villain on this show, and I guess that's true if you're like 8 years old. He's like Voldemort, you know, there's no real dimension to him. He has no sense of any inner life or personality beyond being bad and killing people.
You know what Zoom will do if you don't obey him!
See, what I liked about Eobard Thawne in comparison is that at the end of the day, he was just trying to get home. He had a very simple, albeit silly goal that was elevated into supervillain territory because he was insane. Zoom is just fully insane. His origin is that he was a psychotic serial killer who got superpowers and he wants to conquer or destroy every single universe in existence. There's no internal conflict, there's no evolution. His only real motivation is that he's crazy.
To give people hope, Detective. Hope. So I can rip it away from them.
Zoom enjoys being a supervillain, which has a certain charm to it, and he comes from another dimension, so it's okay if his personality is somewhat unrealistic. But it doesn't feel like there's a person under the monster. It feels like the show is just trying to convince you that Zoom is the even worse version of Thawne, which they also do again in season 3, but the escalation feels hollow. Thawne showed up in episode 9 and beat Barry up, so Zoom shows up in episode 6 and beats Barry up even worse, and then parades his body around the city and shows him off to everyone.
Look at your hero.
Thawne killed Barry's mother, so Zoom kills Barry's father. Thawne wanted to open a portal through time, so Zoom wants to open a portal through space.
Cut the crap. We know you plan to power up the McIntyre so you can destroy the multiverse.
Bravo! You figured it out.
The story is also strangely attached to this idea of Zoom being some kind of mirror for Barry, like a dark version of himself, or a cautionary tale, or something. But that idea never lands because, again, Zoom's only personality trait is being evil. The only question the show seems to be asking with this character is, wouldn't it be bad if a crazy murderer got superpowers instead of Barry? And like, yes?
We're really just the same person.
Yeah, you keep saying that.
I kind of like the idea of treating Zoom more like a monster than a man, but the season also tries to humanize him later on, which falls very flat. If anything, this guy is just a very unsympathetic portrayal of addiction. For me, the one scene of Tom Cavanaugh in villain mode when Barry traveled back in time beats a whole season of Zoom. Also, did you guys know that Tom Cavanaugh was in the movie adaptation of How to Eat Fried Worms? That's not relevant, I just found out recently. Anyway, enough complaining for now. There are things I liked. The biggest one is that the show still feels like it cares. And look, I've given The Flash a lot of shit over the years, but I don't think it really stopped trying until season 6, and that's commendable. Some shows don't wait that long.
Not me. I dropped out in the 4th grade to run drugs to support my nana.
The show still feels like it wants to push itself here, go bigger, do more, and not just coast, and I respect that. And I like that it just keeps diving deeper into the weird stuff. Time travel, alternate dimensions, alternate selves, big shark man, Diggle shows up to help fight the shark man, that's all good.
Look, Barry, when I was in Afghanistan, I lost a lot of friends.
But the only things that stick out to me as good are broad strokes like that, concepts more than moments. There are individual episodes that work very well, but the story feels unbalanced, and ultimately like it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, this is the story of Season 2. After Thawne's death opened a wormhole in the Season 1 finale, Team Flash closed it, but it connected their world to another world under the control of an evil speedster, who is Zoom, obviously. Zoom starts sending over metahumans from Earth 2 to fight Barry because, I don't know, he's evil and they need that whole metahuman of the week formula to stay intact. And Barry murders many of them. Their lives have no meaning. Which makes it extra weird when everyone tells Barry in the finale that he shouldn't kill Zoom because that'll make him just as bad as Zoom.
Of course I want to kill him, Joe.
Come on, Barry. Think about what you're saying.
What about the other murders, though? Anyway, Zoom also made a sort of time clone of himself who was masquerading as a fake superhero on Earth 2. He was pretending to be the Flash, but it was based on another version of the Flash, Jay Garrick, who is also an alternate version of Barry's father, and who Zoom has locked up in a box along with the daughter of Earth 2's Harrison Wells. Her name is Jessie. Did you get all that? Too bad. Earth 2 Wells travels to Earth 1 to get Barry's help in rescuing his daughter, but he also starts secretly stealing Barry's speed and giving it to Zoom in exchange for her freedom. When this is revealed, the team travels to Earth 2 and rescues Jessie, but Jay is killed.
This is a complication.
I don't know why he says that. It's not. He planned this.
Getting my time remnant to agree to me murdering him took a bit of convincing.
So even though Team Flash closes all the gateways between Earths, Zoom eventually finds a way back to Earth 1. He steals all of Barry's speed, and he begins to invade with his metahuman army. Barry tries to recreate the accident that gave him his powers and dies horribly, but he gets better and returns in full Flash mode after getting a pep talk from the Speed Force, who is also his dead mom, and who reads him bedtime stories.
One day he told his mother, "I wish I were special like the other dinosaurs."
No time to unpack all that strangeness though, because Zoom kills Barry's dad and wants one final race, which will open up a portal that destroys the multiverse somehow. But Barry makes his own time clone, who sacrifices himself to close the portal, and then Zoom is turned into a demon by time ghosts. It's the classic hero's journey, and sure, a lot of things happen, a lot of events occur. There's still lots of charm and effort to be found in the production, but there's something missing. I think the answer lies in the clash between ambition and repetition. It feels like the writers want to dig into new ideas, but also don't want the show to move too far away from what people liked about Season 1, which makes sense. Also, it's a CW show, so it can never change or evolve in any significant way. And there are some new things, new abilities, new worlds, but it all feels the same. When the characters go to Earth 2, they end up fighting in the same nondescript warehouses as on Earth 1. Earth 2 doesn't even look that different. It's just a slightly redressed version of what we saw before. Oh hey look, a metaphor for the whole season.
Doppelganger.
You know how I've been calling this show repetitive for like 6 years? Well, here's where it started. Once again, we have an evil speedster who wants to make Barry get faster by fighting other metahumans. We have a shady Harrison Wells who helps the team as a cover for his secret goal. Barry's mentor turns out to be an evil speedster. Barry's parent is killed by said speedster. Barry running very fast is the key to the villain's plan. Barry has a relationship with a woman, but it falls apart because he can't be honest with her about being the Flash. The longer I look at it, the more it just looks like Season 1. But there are so many things that Season 2 does worse, especially the mysteries at the core of the story. In the first season, they were all linked to the main characters, and all connected to a past they had a common understanding of. As the answers they uncovered changed the world and the dynamics between characters, you could feel a real shift. But in Season 2, things feel more aimless. The way Zoom is handled just makes Barry look stupid by falling for the same bluff 2 seasons in a a row.
I made the same mistake twice.
And the only other significant question mark is the man in the iron mask, who we now know is Jay Garrick, but it would have meant just as much if it was another Barry or another Wells. Also, the fact that John Wesley Shipp is killed and then sort of resurrected in the same episode just really undercuts that moment. I'm not saying it had to be all mysteries all the time again, but the mysteries they do have don't really build, and the answers aren't meaningful. Things just kind of happen. Even the final thing that happens in the season just feels like a crazy left turn to set up season 3 and keep people hooked. Oh god, Flashpoint. Why do they keep trying to make that work?
Yeah.
Anyway, the season's overarching story also isn't helped by the fact that the first 8 episodes are mainly focused on setting up Legends of Tomorrow. So, while Zoom is kind of vibrating menacingly in the distance, we keep getting pulled into new stories about the second Firestorm and Hawk people and how they have to fight this guy who throws knives. Oh no, not knives. And yes, there's a second Firestorm. Ronnie died again. They even copied Ronnie dying before the season started from season 1. So, besides Caitlin once again mourning this poor bastard, the side characters do have new stuff to deal with. The main one being the return of Iris's estranged mother, who's also dying because, of course, and the revelation that she has a secret brother, Wally West. Wally is a decent character on paper, but from the second he shows up, it's pretty clear the writers have no idea what to do with him, which remains a core facet of his character for the entire show. He's this show's Thea, basically, just this kind of useless appendage. And I wanted to like this storyline. I like Joe, I like Iris, I'm cool with some unique conflict for them, but all the family drama just feels so hackneyed and soap opera-ish, which The Flash always kind of does, but it's like all that energy is being focused into one plot here.
I don't know why this is so hard. I barely even know her.
I think what season 2 does better than anything is provide a very clear template for where the show is headed. Watching it again, it felt just as unfocused and limp as season 6 or 7 or 8 or 5 or 4 or 3. I mean, I didn't have many positive memories of this season going in, but coming out, I just felt nothing. The romantic subplots also aren't much to write home about, as usual. Barry gets a new love interest in Patty Spivot, and they have some solid chemistry. They're bearable to watch together. High praise, I know. Unfortunately, as nice of a presence as Patty is among these characters, she only ever feels like a placeholder for Iris, and when she leaves town, it's a pretty clear signal to the audience that these two sort of siblings are gonna Episode 21 of this season is the first time that Barry and Iris's love saves the day, but fans of this show know it won't be the last. To be fair, they don't just become a couple immediately. Iris also has her own temporary love obstacle, but they share roughly 3 scenes, and then that character never shows up again for the entirety of the show, so that doesn't matter. I'm glad that Barry and Iris's relationship was given some room to breathe, though. And I'm very glad the show didn't just force them together the second Eddie died. I mean, sure, there's all the yearning and the usual CW emotional stew, but the season does not end with them as a couple, and because the last beat is setting up Flashpoint, their future does feel somewhat ambiguous. It's obvious that they will get together, it always has been, but there is this feeling of who knows what could happen next. Sometimes I wish I could forget what happens next.
The one thing Black Flash can't fight.
High school football.
The fake Jay Garrick and Caitlin also get involved, which I like. I mean, if everyone on this show has to date someone, then at least unknowingly dating the villain is a good recipe for drama. Even though we all should have seen it coming, I mean, Jay only ever wears black leather, it's kind of obvious in hindsight, and they should have let Cisco date Captain Cold's sister. You know, why not? But really, there's no point in complaining about things the show never changed, and the show's eventual fate of of getting worse and worse was already sealed by nature of it being a show on the CW. You know, CW shows don't really have traditional arcs or endings or even coherent ones. They just kind of go until they stop. And I think the reason why so many shows from that network remain such a point of fascination among my generation, and, you know, myself included, is because they will often go for such a significant chunk of our lives. The average hit CW show will get renewed for anything between 7 to 15 seasons. So we grow up with these shows, we grow out of them, and what started as weekly fluff that killed an hour on a school night becomes a symbol of disappointment. And I'd already been through this before The Flash. Arrow wasn't even the first one that hurt me. I was a Vampire Diaries fan. Do you know what that's like? To live that low? Anyway, I was also very deep in the comic book movie industrial complex when Arrow and Flash started, but it's been over a decade now, and I can't see these shows as anything more than shallow entertainment I enjoyed when I was a teenager. And if there is anything The Flash Season 2 feels like, it's just another CW show.